You know this feeling well. The moment when you are about to take an important step, to take a risk, to speak your truth, and then, out of nowhere, a wave of ice runs up your spine. A silent but deafening voice screams in your mind, "Don't do it. Be quiet. It's dangerous." And you obey. You retreat. And you are left with the bitter pain of a lost opportunity, feeling like a coward in your own life, without understanding who or what has just sabotaged. This experience is the pain of living in an invisible prison, guarded by a jailer yourself. It is the anguish of being paralyzed by fears that your logical mind knows irrational, but that your body treats threat of death. It is the feeling of fighting a civil war against an enemy that knows all your weaknesses, that anticipates your every move, and that always seeks to win, because this enemy lives inside. And the title of our meeting is a promise of liberation. Destroy the fears that your shadow hides. But in the profound wisdom of Carl Jung, we need to understand that you do not destroy a part of your soul with violence. Trying to do so only makes it stronger and more frightening. The secret of alchemy is not the annihilation of raw material. It is its transmutation. We will learn to destroy the power that fear has over you, not by attacking it, but by discovering and reclaiming the immense strength that it is actually hiding. For Jung, your shadow is not a monster. It is a guardian, the safe have locked away for your own survival. All the parts were once considered dangerous or unacceptable. And this includes not only your pain, but more importantly, your rawest strength, your sharpest assertiveness, your wildest passion, and your most authentic power. Your fear is the guardian guarding the door to this safe. Think of your fears as a huge, loyal guard dog that was mistreated when it was just a puppy. Now it barks and growls at anyone who approaches your gate, whether friend or foe, because it no longer knows the difference. It believes in its wounded instinct that it is protecting the immature hero, the ego, tries to kick the dog or yell at it, which only makes it more. The wise hero, which is who you are becoming, sits on the floor at a safe distance with patience and begins to teach the dog safe. The promise of our profound 40-minute journey is to be your guide to sitting with your own guard dog. We will learn through 9 stages to identify your fears, to understand why they are there, to dialogue with them, and finally to integrate their immense energy, transforming your most intimate saboteur into your most loyal, powerful protector. The first step in our journey to destroy our fears is to correctly diagnose the enemy. And the pain that guides us here is that of irrationality. It is the frustration of being paralyzed by fears that your logical mind knows with absolute certainty are absurd. It is the fear of public speaking, the fear of intimacy, the fear of success, or the dread of failure. Your rational mind tells you that there is no real danger, but your body and emotions react as if you were facing a death threat, and this war between your logic and your feelings leaves you exhausted and confused. What Jung's psychology teaches us is that we need to differentiate between 2 types of fear. The first is the fear of the ego. It is a logical, rational fear connected to a real threat in the outside world. If you are facing a hungry lion, feeling fear is a healthy response from your ego to ensure your survival. The second type, the one we are interested in here, is the fear of the shadow. And this is not a logical fear. It is the emotional charge of an unconscious, of a repressed part of your psyche that has been activated. And here is the revelation that can save you years of useless struggle. You cannot defeat a fear of the shadow with logic, because it was not born of logic. Trying to use rational arguments against your panic or your fear of being abandoned is like trying to put out a fire by giving a speech of the chemistry. The tool is completely inadequate for the task. To deal with a fear that arises from the unconscious, we need to use the language of the unconscious. To begin to relate to your fear in a new way, the invitation is to take a fear inventory. Choose a fear that paralyzes you in your life. And now, instead of trying to analyze it with your mind, the invitation is for you to feel it in your body. Close your eyes for a moment. Where does this fear live in you? Is it a tightness, a lump in your a chill in your stomach? Is it an energy that paralyzes you or makes you want to? The first step in working with any energy is to recognize it as a physical and not just an abstract and wrong thought. Think of your psyche, a large iceberg. Your conscious logic is just the tip of the water, and you have spent your life trying to fix and understand this visible part. But the fear that you feel, the force that really moves and directs your life, is generated by the immense, archaic, and invisible mass of ice that is submerged in the dark waters of your unconscious. To change the course of the iceberg, there's no point in sanding its tip. You need to learn to work with the deep currents of the ocean. After diagnosing the nature of your fear, the pain that arises is that of guilt. It is the feeling that these fears are a character defect, a weakness that is inherently yours, something you were born with that makes you different and inferior to others. It is the shame of being fearful in a world that seems to applaud only courage and strength. What depth psychology shows us is that these fears are not your fault. They are proof of your immense adaptive intelligence in childhood. In order to survive emotionally and to secure love and belonging in our family system, all of us, as children, became little social scientists. We learned to observe, with incredible precision, which parts of ourselves were met with love and approval, and which were met with disapproval, punishment, or, even worse, indifference. The acceptable parts we have learned to show, and they have formed our persona, our social mask. And the unacceptable parts we have learned to hide, to repress, to exile, to the dark realm of and here is the breaking of expectation that begins to dismantle the power of your fear. Your fear is not of the quality itself. You are not afraid of being powerful. You are not afraid of feeling angry, not afraid of being vulnerable. Your fear is of the consequence that you, as a child, learn to associate. It is the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of humiliation. You fear that if you express your power, no one will love you. You fear that if you express your anger, you will be punished. Your fear, at its core, is a fear of non-belonging, the greatest of all human, so that you can begin to understand the origin of your pact of exile. I invite you to an archaeology of emotion. Think of one of your specific fears that paralyze. It could be the fear of being seen or of taking up space. Now ask yourself, who in my childhood would have felt threatened or rejected me if I expressed the opposite quality to this fear? If you feared being seen, who in your family felt blinded by your light? If you feared expressing your anger, who in your home could not stand conflict? Tracing the fear back to its relational origin is what allows us to understand that it is not a truth about us, but a survival strategy that was once necessary but has now become obsolete. Think of each of your fears as the ghost of a part of you that has been exiled to a faraway land. Your anger, which was your protective strength, has been banished. Your exuberant joy, which was your vitality, has been told to shut up. Your personal power, your sovereignty, has been called arrogant. And the fear you feel today, electrified fence you yourself built long ago around this camp of to ensure that they would never again escape and jeopardize their place in the world. Your job now is not to reinforce the fence, but to courageously open the. After understanding the origin of our fears, we now need to look at how they act in our, and the pain that guides us is that of self-sabotage. It is the frustrating and maddening experience of procrastinating on your greatest dreams, of repeatedly choosing partners who diminish or invalidate you, or of abandoning your most promising project just when they are about to come to fruition. It is the feeling of being your own most efficient enemy, building with one hand and demolishing without understanding why. What is happening here is that the energy of your shadow, the energy of your exiled and fear-laden parts, does not remain still in your unconscious. It acts. It manifests itself in the theater of your life. Since it is not allowed to express itself directly and consciously, it influences your choices behind the scenes. It acts as an inner saboteur, ensuring that you never put yourself in a situation where the feared and exiled part of you is at risk of being exposed and, consequently, rejected again. And the revelation that frees you from self-criticism is this: your self-sabotaging behaviors are not character. They are, in fact, highly logical, if misguided protective strategies. Your procrastination is not laziness. It is your fear of success and the visibility and judgment it would bring, paralyzing your action to keep you safe in obscurity. Your attraction to relationships that diminish you is not bad luck or masochism. It is your fear of your own power, which leads you to choose partners who will not feel threatened by it. To begin to understand the logic behind your self-sabotage, the invitation is to investigate the protective purpose of sabotage. Choose a self-sabotaging behavior that torments, and instead of judging yourself for it, ask yourself with compassionate curiosity, what terrible disaster, what unbearable pain is this behavior trying misguidedly and clumsily to help me avoid? By asking this question, you begin to see your saboteur not as an enemy, but as a frightened and overprotective bodyguard. Think of your shadow as a resourceful and forgotten prisoner in the deepest dungeon of your castle. He can't get out of his cell, but over time, he has learned to tamper with the electrical wiring of the entire prison. And every now and then, to get the attention of the jailer, who is you, he causes blackouts, which are his loss of motivation, and short circuits, which are his acts of sabotage. He doesn't do this because he is evil. He does it as a form of protest, as a desperate cry of a prisoner who longs to be seen, heard, finally. Once you understand how your fears sabotage your life, your natural tendency may be to want to fight them even harder. And the pain that arises here is that of civil war. It is the exhaustion of a lifetime spent in a battle against yourself, in an attempt to eradicate, to annihilate the parts of yourself that you consider weak, undesirable, or frightening. And as in all civil wars, there are no winners. There is only a devastated, divided and weakened inner kingdom. What Jung's psychology teaches us, and which sounds like heresy to our culture of overcoming and conquering, is that the psyche does not seek perfection. It seeks wholeness. Trying to destroy or defeat a part of yourself is an act of psychic self-mutilation. It is an act that goes against the most fundamental impulse of your soul, which is to become whole. And that is why this struggle is so painful and destined to fail. You cannot heal yourself by declaring war on yourself. And here is the revelation that can finally bring peace to your inner realm. The energy that is frozen in your fear is your richest raw material. It is your passion, strength, your creativity, your vitality. Destroying fear would be like breaking the engine of your car because you are afraid of its power. The goal of the hero's journey is not to destroy the engine. It is to learn to find the key, to start the engine, and to drive the car conscious so that you can use all of its power to go where you want to go. To begin to change this dynamic of war to one of peace, the invitation is for a simple but radical inner change of attitude. The next time your fear arises, instead of resisting it, instead of saying, "Go away, I don't want to feel you," try shifting your stance to one of curiosity. Take a deep breath, say to yourself, as greeting an old acquaintance, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. What have you come to?" This shift from an attitude of resistance to one of curiosity is what begins the alchemy. Think of your relationship with fear this way. You don't destroy the darkness of a dark room by shooting it with a gun, or by yelling at it to go away. That would be pointless and insane. You dissolve the darkness with a very simple act. You turn on a light. Your compassionate awareness, your calm curiosity, your willingness to look at what is there without judgment is that light. You don't fight fear. You bring the light of your awareness to it, and in the presence of that light, the darkness of fear's power over you simply dissolve. After understanding that we should not fight our fear, but rather embrace it, we come across our most common and most deeply rooted defense mechanism in modern culture. It is the pain of avoidance. It is the tendency to keep ourselves constantly busy, distracted, jumping from one stimulus to another, from work to social media, from social media to a series, from one series to another concern, all so that we do not have to spend a single minute in silence, so that we do not have comfort and habits inner. What we need to understand is that in order to cure fear, we inevitably need to get close. In all of humanity's great mythologies, the hero's or heroine's journey always includes a crucial moment that the Greeks called Nikaia, the descent into the underworld. The hero, to gain the wisdom, power, or treasure he seeks, must have the courage to descend into a dark place, be it a cave, the underworld, or the belly of the whale. And his journey of healing requires his own Nikia, his own courageous descent into his unconscious. And the shattering of expectation here redefines our notion of heroism. True courage is not the absence of fear. True courage is the decision to act in the present. And the first, most difficult, important act of courage on your journey is not to fight against what is chasing you. It is to simply stop running, Take a deep breath, turn your face, and look at what has been chasing you all your life. This simple act of looking changes the entire dynamic. It transforms you from a victim who runs away to a protagonist who confronts you. To begin practicing this act of courage, you are invited to a 5-minute date. Mark your calendar for a date with your fear. And for those 5 minutes, your only job to sit quietly and allow your fear to exist in your presence without retreating to any distraction. You don't need to analyze. You don't need to fix it. You don't even need to understand it. Your one heroic task is to be with it. It's to show yourself that you can survive its presence. Think of your fear as a monster that you believe lives in your closet. It only has immense power over you when the closet door is closed. In the darkness, your imagination makes it gigantic, terrifying, and all-powerful. Its power lies in the fact that it is invisible, but the very moment that you, trembling but determined, open the door and turn on the light to finally look at, the monster begins to shrink. And you realize that more often than not, it wasn't a monster at all, but just an old coat hanging in an odd way, or a frightened part of you that needed to be seen. The act of looking dissolves the power of fear. After your first courageous act of looking at, of allowing it to exist in your presence, a new pain, a new anguish. It is the pain of what now? It is the feeling of sitting in a dark room face to face with your monster, but not knowing what. It is the feeling that simply observing it is not enough, that a next step is needed, a method, a way of interacting with this energy, so that true transformation, and it is for this moment that Jung bequeathed us his most powerful and most transformative technique, the art of active imagination. This is not a simple passive visualization. It is a method of conscious dialogue, the figures and energies of our unconscious. It is the act of giving a voice, a form, and a personality to our inner parts, such as our fear, so that we can finally understand what they want, what they need, and why they act in our lives. And the revelation that frees us to begin this dialogue is that your shadow, your fear, your inner dragon does not respond to your life. Trying to convince it with rational arguments that it does not need to exist is useless, but it responds, and responds with immense wisdom to the language it understands, the language of images, feelings, and symbols. To communicate with it, you need to learn to speak the language of the soul. To begin learning this language, the invitation is to have a conversation, whether in a journal, where you write the questions and allow the answers to flow through your hand, or in silent meditation. Visualize your fear as a figure, your dragon, and with an attitude of deep respect, ask it 3 fundamental questions. First, what is your real name? This forces you to go beyond the generic label of fear and discover whether it is the fear of abandonment, the fear of failure. Give it a specific name. Second question, what treasure are you so jealously protecting? This question assumes that your fear is not there to harm you, but to guard something of immense value. Perhaps your fear of intimacy is protecting your vulnerability. Perhaps your fear of protecting and simplicity. And the third and most important question, what do you need from me so that you can safely hand over this treasure to me? And then, listen. Listen to the answer without censorship, without judgment. The answer from your inner dragon holds the exact map for your own healing and integration. Think of yourself as a diplomat sent to a foreign, mysterious, and powerful land, which is your own unconscious. You cannot enter this land by imposing your language, customs, and logic. If you do, you will be seen as an invader, attacked. A good diplomat first learns the local language. He studies the customs, he shows respect, he builds bridges of trust. Active imagination is your crash course in the language of your own soul. It is your school of inner diplomacy, which will teach you how to transform a potential enemy into your greatest and most powerful ally. After you begin the dialogue with your fear, one last limiting belief may persist. It is the pain of feeling simply broken. It is the belief that your shadow is just a psychological dumping ground, a basement of trauma, negativity, and parts of you that don't work, and that the work of looking within is simply a work of cleansing, repairing, of dealing with the damage that, and this is where the journey leads us to shocking and empowering discovery. As the depth psychologists who followed in Jung's footsteps observed, we don't just repress our bad traits to our shadow. We also repress our brightest and most potent qualities. We repress our genius for fear that it will make others jealous. We repress our leadership for fear of being seen as authoritarian. We repress our beauty for fear of being judged as shallow. And we repress our passion for fear that it will be too much for the world. Your fear doesn't just hold your pain. It holds your gold. It is your golden shadow. And the expectation breaking that can change your life forever is this: behind your most paralyzing fear lies your greatest power. Behind your fear of being too much is your genius waiting to be expressed. Behind your fear of conflict, warriors, and your ability to protect what you love. And behind your fear of being abandoned is your immense, profound capacity to love. The fear you discover was just the thick, frightening shell that protected your brightest and most vulnerable gift. To begin to identify your own gold, the invitation is to the opposite exercise. Take your core fear, the one you identified in the previous chapter. For example, the fear of being seen. Now ask yourself, what is the positive and direct opposite of this fear? And it is not just being seen. It is perhaps the power of having a magnetic presence that inspires others. Now for a moment, embrace the possibility that this quality, this power, is the true nature of the energy that for now is frozen and distorted in the form of your fear. Imagine that you spent your entire life fearing an old, rusty safe that was locked in the basement. You were taught to believe that it contained the most shameful secrets of your lineage, the proof of your failure, the skeletons of your family, and so you never dared to. One day, after much journeying, you finally find the courage to approach it, to brush off the dust, to turn the key and open the heavy door, and you discover, with a shock that brings you to tears, that the safe does not hold skeleton. It holds the crown jewels of your own lost kingdom. After the wonderful discovery your shadow was guarding your gold, a final and subtle pain may arise. It is the pain of separation. It is the feeling of looking at your power, your strength, your genius, as if it were an object in a display case. You understand that it is yours, but you still do not know how to make it part of you. It is the question: I know I have this potential, but how do I incorporate it into my daily life? What Jung's psychology teaches us is that the work does not end with the discovery. The discovery is only the beginning of the final phase of alchemy, conscious integration. It is not enough to understand your shadow or to admire your golden shadow. It is absolutely essential that the energy that was contained in it be deliberately and consciously integrated into your life through your ego. Your conscious ego needs to learn to use this new and immense source of power in a constructive and responsible way. And the counterintuitive revelation here is that integration does not happen only through meditation or reflection. It happens and is only consolidated through real and symbolic action in the world. After dialoguing with your shadow and understanding the gift it holds, you need to give this energy an expression, a channel, a constructive outlet in the real world. It is action that anchors. It is the act of bringing the gold from your inner world and using it as currency in the outer world. After all this profound and at times frightening journey, the mind may present one last pain, the pain of unimagination, the inability to even conceive of what a life would be like that is not constantly governed by fear. We have become so accustomed to our imprisonment or chains that freedom becomes an abstract and almost unbelievable concept. The end result of the integration of your shadow, the fruit of your entire journey of individuation, is not a state of perfection free from problem. It is something much more real and much more powerful. It is a state of wholeness. It is the feeling of finally being at home inside your own skin, with all your lights and all your shadows living together in a harmonious, dynamic, and the breaking of expectations about what this life is like is fundamental. You do not become a reckless, careless, or aggressive person. You become deeply courageous and centered. Fear can still appear, no longer as a tyrant that paralyzes you, but as a wise counselor who alerts you of danger. Your presence in the world becomes calmer, more solid, and undeniably magnetic because there is no longer a civil war going on inside you. To help you begin to recognize this new reality manifesting itself, we invite you to keep a courage journal. For a week, at the end of each day, write down the small situations where you would normally feel fear and hold back, but where this time you acted differently, even if that action was subtle. It may have been the act of giving your opinion, of asking a question, of saying no. Start collecting evidence of your own growing courage. Consider that before yourself, you wore a heavy, rusty, and rigid armor, which was your defensive persona. Forged fear. Protected you, yes, but it also prevented you from moving, from dancing, from embracing life. The process shadow integration is not about throwing off your armor and becoming vulnerable. It is about transforming that armor of iron into an armor of light. An armor that is still immensely strong and protective, but is now light, flexible, and allows you to dance through life rather than march stiffly through it. We have traveled together today from the prison of irrational and invisible fears, through the diagnosis of their origin, the heresy of embracing them, the dialogue with the dragon, to the discovery of the golden treasure and its final integration. A journey from prisoner to alchemist, from frightened hero to master. And the central truth that I hope will illuminate your journey is this: the act of destroying your deepest fears is, in fact, an act of courageous integration, not annihilation. It is the act of reclaiming the power, passion, and vitality that your fear was, in fact, so zealously protecting. For as Jung's wisdom teaches us, only that which we really are has the power to heal us, and that includes the self we most fear being. The journey to wholeness requires, without a doubt, embracing all of our parts, especially the parts that scare us. Your fears are not the walls of your prison. They are the dragons that guard your birthright. Full, authentic. The journey inward is the only one that can truly set you. Don't slay your dragon. Learn to fly. The courage to begin this journey, to take the first step into your own dark cave, is the only map you'll ever need.